When an officer suddenly accuses you of being aggressive, everything changes. That single word can justify force, lead to arrest, or destroy your case before it begins. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to stay in control, protect yourself, and dismantle that accusation step by step. The moment an officer accuses you of being aggressive, the entire legal and psychological framing of the encounter shifts instantly. Most people don't understand that this phrase is not casual, not descriptive, and not random. In US policing, aggressive is a trigger word, a signal officers use to justify escalation, create legal insulation, and build a narrative that protects them if force is used. You must understand that from the second that word is spoken, the officer is no longer just talking to you. They are talking to their body cam, to the future prosecutor, to the judge reviewing the footage, and to internal affairs if the encounter goes wrong. They are creating a record, and the record you create from your side must begin immediately. Body cam footage has changed policing, but it hasn't eliminated narrative manipulation. Officers know how the footage looks. They know how the microphone picks up tone, breathing, and movement. They know that confusion, fear, adrenaline, and stress can make you move in ways that are involuntary but still appear confrontational. And they know courts use the Graham v. Connor standard, the reasonable officer perspective. That means your behavior will be judged using the officer's interpretation, not your intention. This is why the first rule of surviving an accusation of aggression is to freeze the escalation instantly, physically, verbally, and legally. Start with the physiology. Under acute stress, your sympathetic nervous system activates immediately. Your heart rate jumps, your hands shake without permission, your breathing speeds up, blood pulls away from the digestive tract and moves to your limbs. Pupils dilate, microtremors run through the muscles. To an untrained eye, these look like fear. To a trained officer, they look like preparation for aggression. And officers are trained to interpret any stress response as a potential threat cue. You must override this with conscious regulation. Your shoulders drop 1 inch. Your palms face outward or rest visibly. Your chest stays square. Your chin stays neutral, not raised, not pulled back. Your breath drops into a slow 4-second cycle. This is not compliance. This is strategy. You are protecting yourself from a misinterpretation that could lead to force. Now let's talk about why officers use the phrase, "you're being aggressive," so early in an encounter. It is rarely a description of your behavior. It is a narrative anchor. In legal terms, it sets up a preemptive justification for escalation. If force is used later, that early accusation becomes the foundation of the report. The subject displayed aggressive behavior, which continued to escalate. Notice how powerful that is. Even if your behavior afterward is calm, the officer has already created a storyline that you were aggressive from the beginning. Your response must interrupt that storyline immediately and cleanly. You cannot meet emotion with emotion. You cannot meet accusation with argument. You cannot say, "I'm not aggressive," in a raised voice, because that becomes the clip they use. Instead, you deliver a controlled verbal anchor, short, factual, and reproducible. "Officer, I am not being aggressive. I am complying and keeping my hands visible." This line does 3 strategic things at once. It denies the accusation clearly. It documents your behavior on camera. It resets the emotional tone without challenging the officer's authority. This is not about winning the moment. It is about winning the record. Now let's address physical movement. Human beings gesture when they talk. They move their hands when explaining themselves. They turn their shoulders when reacting emotionally. These are normal. But during a police encounter, normal movement becomes dangerous because officers are trained to describe movement as furtive, blading, clenching, closing distance, or preparing to flee. These are all phrases that justify escalation, and they appear in thousands of police reports across the country. This means during the accusation phase, your hands cannot be doing anything except one of 2 things: visible at chest level or visible at your sides. No touching hair, no wiping sweat, no scratching, no pointing, no gesturing, no sudden adjustments. Any movement becomes evidence twisted into aggression. Stillness is survival. The second major tactic officers use is the distance invasion. When an officer steps closer than normal conversational space, they aren't just trying to intimidate you. They are triggering a natural physiological reaction, your recoil, reflex. When someone moves into your personal space, your body pulls back automatically. Your shoulders tense, your weight shifts, your spine curves slightly. Officers can and often do interpret this as tensing up, bracing to fight, or preparing to resist. If you step back, they can frame it as attempting to flee. If you stand your ground but shift, they can frame it as adopting a fighting stance. If you turn your body even slightly, they can frame it as blading, a martial arts or defense posture. The solution is conscious grounding. When they step in, do not back away. Fix both heels to the floor. Keep your torso facing forward. Keep your hands visible. Keep your stance square and neutral. You are not playing their game. You are controlling the footage. Now here's something most civilians never learn. Officers often accuse you of being aggressive because they want you to become aggressive. They want the emotional match. If they can push you into anger, frustration, or a raised voice, they get confirmation of the narrative they already began. They escalate tone. You escalate tone. They escalate force. And because they verbally labeled you first, they get legal protection. Your refusal to mirror their tone is your greatest weapon. They want escalation. You create stabilization. They want your voice raised. You speak in controlled sentences. They want emotional reactions. You give factual responses. This is how you break the acceleration ladder. The second word officers love after aggressive is resisting. This word is one of the most weaponized terms in policing. Officers can say, "Stop resisting," even when you are still. They can say it when they're pulling your arms. They can say it when they're twisting your wrists. They can say it even when your only movement is the involuntary flinch caused by pain. This is why you must verbally document your compliance on camera. I am not resisting. I am complying. My hands are visible. Short sentences. Calm tone. No qualifiers. Do not say, "I'm trying to comply." Do not say, "I can't move my arm." Do not say, "I'm not resisting," but these create ambiguity. The officer's phrase, "stop resisting," was designed to overpower your version of the moment. Your calm, simple statements are designed to override their misrepresentation. Now let's dig deeper into the internal mechanics of officer perception. Every police academy teaches threat detection based heavily on body language. Officers are taught to look for clenched fists, flared nostrils, rapid breathing, squared shoulders, vocal strain, shifting feet, and darting eye movement. The problem? All of those behaviors appear during normal fear. And most civilians experience fear during police encounters. The officer interprets your biology through a tactical lens. You must interpret your biology through a legal lens. That means your priority is not how you feel. Your priority is how the camera reads you. Slow breathing starves adrenaline. Relaxed shoulders counter the preparing to strike narrative. Open hands counter the clenched fist narrative. Facing forward counters the blading stance narrative. Measured speech counters the agitated suspect narrative. Remember this. Your behavior is the evidence you are creating with your body. Your words are the evidence you are creating with your voice. Your posture is the evidence you are creating with your spine. Your breath is the evidence you are creating with your lungs. Everything is part of the record, and the record is the battlefield. The last part of part 1 is your grounding phrase. This is the sentence you use whenever the officer attempts verbal escalation. "Officer, I want to cooperate. Tell me what you need me to do." It resets the encounter. It signals compliance. It interrupts the officer's narrative. It anchors your body cam portrayal. It removes confrontation. In a courtroom, that one line becomes gold. It shows calm intent. It shows level-headedness. It shows maturity. It destroys the idea that you were aggressive. It preemptively protects you from the claim that you were threatening. But everything you learned in part 1 only prepares you for the first stage of the confrontation. Once the officer labels you as aggressive, the real battle begins. Not with your body language, but with the narrative they start building around you. And that's where part 2 becomes critical, because now we shift from controlling your physical presence to dismantling the exact psychological and legal tactics officers use to turn normal fear into aggression on paper. The next stage of any encounter where an officer accuses you of aggression is the construction of the official narrative. Police rarely act alone in generating this narrative. It unfolds through specific phrases, coordinated behaviors, and predictable legal framing. Once you understand these mechanics, you gain the ability to break the pattern in real time. The goal here is not to argue. The goal is to produce a record that cannot be twisted later. When an officer labels you as aggressive, they are doing two things: justifying their present behavior and preparing their future report. Police reports are not written like regular stories. They are structured around threat indicators. These indicators include tone of voice, stance, movement, hand position, facial expression, and verbal responses. Officers frame these details in a way that supports their subsequent decisions. A slight lean becomes subject shifted weight in a preparatory stance. A startled flinch becomes subject pulled away when contact was initiated. A raised brow becomes subject challenged officer authority. You must understand how the smallest actions get stretched into far larger claims on paper. This is why your behavior must be documented with precision while the encounter is happening. The most powerful tool you possess at this stage is controlled, factual narration. Not storytelling, not argument, not opinion. Pure, observable facts. When an officer escalates or misrepresents your behavior, calmly stating a fact forces the body cam to capture clarity. For example, "Officer, my hands are visible." "Officer, I am standing still." "Officer, my tone is calm." "Officer, I am following instructions." These are not defensive. They are evidence. Let's break down why they work. Police reports depend on subjective interpretation. Body cam footage depends on objective observation. Your statements create an objective frame. If the officer writes that you were yelling, but the footage shows your measured tone saying, "Officer, I am calm," the narrative collapses. Prosecutors watch that. Judges watch that. Defense attorneys use that. Juries respond to that. You win not by fighting the officer, but by building a stronger record than they do. Now let's look at the language officers use to strengthen their narrative. There are 5 phrases officers rely on when they want to escalate or justify escalation. You're getting aggressive. You need to calm down. You're not listening. You're resisting. Stop resisting. These phrases, once spoken, create legal cover for force, even if the force is unnecessary. Officers also use them as verbal cues to each other. When one says, "He's getting aggressive," the others pivot into tactical mode. Their hands move toward equipment, their stance widens, their tone sharpens. A group dynamic forms instantly, and your behavior, no matter how calm, gets interpreted through the lens of that first accusation. Your job is to disrupt the lens, not the officers. The most tactical response you can use when multiple officers arrive is a calm, transparent announcement of your intentions. "Officers, I want to cooperate with everyone here. Tell me what you need me to do." You're doing 3 things here. You are resetting the emotional temperature of the group. You are documenting compliance for all body cams. You are establishing that you are not a threat. In group policing situations, tone spreads like electricity. If one officer feels threatened, all of them elevate at once. But the opposite is also true. If you stabilize the tone early, the group recognizes you're not escalating, and body cams capture the contrast. Now we must talk about the most important psychological tactic officers use: ambiguity. Officers exploit unclear instructions. They give overlapping commands, they interrupt each other. They tell you to move and then tell you not to move. They say hands up and then don't reach for anything. They create confusion and then treat your confusion as defiance. This is how ordinary people end up with failure to comply or resisting arrest charges. Your greatest weapon here is clarification, not argumentative clarification, functional clarification. You say, "Officer, I want to follow your instructions. Can you repeat the command clearly?" This shifts burden. If commands conflict, your clarity request protects you. If officers contradict each other, your request highlights the contradiction. If an officer later claims you ignored instructions, your request shows the opposite. Body cams capture your intent to comply, not their confusion. And here's the truth: unclear instructions are strategic. They allow officers to reinterpret your actions however they want later. You remove that ability when you make the instructions clear on record. The next concept is silence as a shield. You do not need to answer accusatory questions. You do not need to explain why you're nervous or why your voice is shaky. Officers often ask questions designed to provoke emotional responses like, "Why are you acting like this? What are you so upset about? Why are you tensing up? What's your problem?" These questions are not legitimate inquiries. They are setup questions. They push you into defensiveness. They bait you to justify yourself emotionally. And when you answer emotionally, you reinforce the aggression label. The correct response is structured silence. "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." "Officer, I'm complying and remaining calm." "Officer, I am following your commands." When you stick to these lines, you cannot incriminate yourself, you cannot escalate yourself, and you cannot give them anything to twist. Now let's talk about the moment officers touch you. This is the single most dangerous phase because your body will react involuntarily. If they grab your wrist unexpectedly, your arm might recoil automatically due to spinal reflex arcs. If they push your shoulder, your balance might shift. If they grab your shirt, your torso will tighten. None of this is aggression. It is physics and biology, but officers often describe it as pulling away, or tightening muscles, or refusing to provide hands. These phrases are used to build resisting charges. So here's the rule. The moment an officer touches you, your voice must activate, "Officer, I am not resisting." "Officer, I am complying." Say it every few seconds, not loudly, not emotionally. Calm, steady, undeniable. This protects you because body cam microphones capture audio clearly, even when visuals are chaotic. If the officer claims you resisted but your voice repeats compliance, the prosecutor has a problem. The officer cannot explain why your behavior contradicts their accusations. This matters immensely because resisting charges are often used when the underlying accusation is weak. Many resisting charges begin not with physical resistance, but with verbal or emotional reactions. Police twist the story to justify the arrest. Your calm narration prevents that. Next, you must understand how officers coordinate in groups. When 3 or more officers surround you, they create a collective narrative almost automatically. If one claims aggression, the others adopt the same claim, even if none of them saw it. This is known as contagious interpretation. Your behavior must cut through that. The safest way: "I want to cooperate with all of you. Please tell me what to do and I will do it." This sentence is devastating to false narratives. It eliminates ambiguity. It removes aggression from your side. It neutralizes the idea of threat. In court, a jury hearing that line sees you as rational and controlled. Now let's pivot to legal positioning. Under the Fourth Amendment, you have the right to be free from unreasonable seizure. That includes unreasonable force, unreasonable commands, and unreasonable escalation. Officers know this, but they also know the courts usually defer to their interpretation. This is why you must create the counter-interpretation as the event is happening. You are not explaining what happened later. You are documenting what is happening now. This is how you turn a weak case into an unwinnable case for the prosecution. Let's analyze the officer's psychological strategy. Accusing you of aggression shifts the focus away from their behavior and onto your reactions. If you respond emotionally, they win. If you stay calm, they lose narrative control. Officers rely heavily on dominance psychology. They want you to feel small, reactive, off balance. They want you to mirror their intensity. Every time you remain calm, you fracture their control of the encounter. This is why the controlled voice becomes your most potent defensive tool. Short sentences, neutral pitch, no emotional spikes, no rapid speech, no rising volume. Your voice becomes the anchor. Officers cannot shake someone who does not mirror them. The final component of this part is about timing. In police encounters, the first one to set the narrative wins. Officers try to be first, but body cams democratize the timeline. You can set your narrative too, and your narrative must begin every time the officer escalates. By the end of this part, you understand exactly how to break the officer's narrative while the encounter is unfolding. But the situation doesn't end there. Even if you stay calm, even if you clarify commands, even if you neutralize accusations, the next phase, detention, the patrol car, and the threat of arrest, creates an entirely new set of risks. And that's why part 3 matters, because this final stage is where most people accidentally incriminate themselves without even realizing it. Once the officer has accused you of aggression and you've successfully stabilized the encounter, the next phase is detention. The moment you are told to sit, stand in place, turn around, keep your hands visible, or wait while the officer runs your name. Most people relax too early here. That is a mistake. Detention is where many officers begin shifting the narrative aggressively in their reports because it is the phase with the least dramatic footage. They assume you will emotionally unwind, get frustrated by the delay, or react to their tone. You must not. This is where your strategy becomes more sophisticated because the officer's goal is to generate justification for further action. The first rule of detention is stillness and clarity. When you are detained, your body movements matter more than your words. Officers often watch for pre-assault indicators, which include looking around, shifting weight, touching pockets, adjusting clothing, checking the environment, or stepping backward. They are trained to interpret all these actions as preparation to flee or fight. What they do not account for is that normal human discomfort, fear, frustration, irritation, shame, creates these movements involuntarily. So your strategy is simple. Eliminate all ambiguous movement. Keep your feet planted. Keep your hands visible. Keep your torso still. If you must adjust anything, narrate it. Officer, I'm adjusting my pants with my right hand. Officer, I'm scratching my leg. Officer, I'm repositioning my foot. These statements prevent your movement from being used later as evidence of aggression or resistance. You are not seeking permission. You are documenting intention. The difference is strategic. Now let's address the officer's accusations during detention. Officers often use this moment to throw in secondary comments like, "You're acting weird. You're still being aggressive. You're making this harder than it needs to be. You should have listened earlier." These statements are not meant to start a conversation. They are meant to build a narrative that you were the problem from the beginning. If you answer emotionally, you give them the clip they need. If you answer sarcastically, you feed their argument. If you answer defensively, you reinforce their story. Your response must remain consistent with the record you've been building. Officer, I am calm and complying. I'm following all your instructions. I don't want any problems. I'm cooperating. Remember, the camera is your audience, not the officer. Now let's move to the patrol car. Most civilians don't realize this is where officers attempt to salvage the narrative they failed to build earlier. They know your adrenaline is dropping. They know you're confused, scared, or frustrated. They know being separated from public view makes people talk more, and they often start asking leading questions like, "Now that you've calmed down, you see why we thought you were aggressive, right? You got angry back there. What was that about? What were you trying to do when we stepped in? Why were you resisting when we touched you?" These are not innocent questions. They are criminal liability traps. The officer is trying to get you to validate the story they want to write. If you say anything like, "I wasn't trying to resist, I was just scared," they will cut that sentence in half in their report. The part where you said, "I wasn't resisting," disappears. The part where they can frame "I was scared" becomes, "The suspect admitted emotional agitation during the encounter." Your strategy is one sentence. "Officer, I wish to remain silent until I speak with an attorney." That is the cleanest, most legally perfect line you can deliver. It stops everything. Under the Fifth Amendment and the Miranda Doctrine, once you invoke your right to remain silent, officers must stop questioning you. But here's the key. You must invoke it clearly. If you say, "I think I should stay quiet," "Maybe I need a lawyer," "I don't want to say anything," or "I'm not sure if I should talk," these do not count. Officers can legally keep questioning you under Davis v. United States, which gives them permission to ignore ambiguous references to lawyers. The line must be direct, unmistakable, and assertive. Nothing else works. "Officer, I wish to remain silent until I speak with an attorney." Say it once. Say it calmly. Say it slowly. After that, do not say anything else. If the officer responds with frustration, mocking, or questions like, "You don't need a lawyer if you didn't do anything wrong," people who ask for lawyers always hide something. So you're refusing to cooperate now? You sure you don't want to just explain yourself? All of these are psychological pressure tactics. They are intentionally designed to provoke you into talking. They want you to break your silence. The moment you break it, they regain control of the narrative. Your job is to stay silent. Officers cannot legally punish you for remaining silent. They cannot extend detention because of it. They cannot use silence as evidence of guilt. Your silence is your legal armor. Next, we need to address the threat of arrest. Officers often use the threat of arrest not because they intend to arrest you, but because they want to provoke emotional reactions. Threats like, "If you keep acting like this, I'm taking you in. You're 1 second away from going to jail. I can arrest you right now for acting aggressive. Say one more thing and you're going into cuffs." These are engineered to make you talk, defend yourself, or argue. But the moment you argue, you lose. The moment you react, you give them a reason to escalate. You need a neutralizing sentence that freezes the threat. Here's your line. "Officer, I am cooperating. What would you like me to do?" This does two things at once. It shows the camera you are calm. It forces the officer to either give a clear instruction or drop the threat. If they give a clear instruction, follow it immediately. If they drop the threat, the footage shows there was never legitimate cause for arrest. Now, let's address record gaps, a critical area civilians rarely understand. Body cams malfunction, officers mute them. Officers lift their vests so the camera view is blocked. Officers position themselves in ways that obscure the lens. These gaps become dangerous because officers can claim anything happened during the gap. You counter this with rapid verbal documentation whenever the camera comes back into view. As soon as the officer lowers their vest or unmutes the camera, you calmly say, "Officer, I am calm and cooperating. I am standing still with my hands visible. I am following your instructions." These statements act like timestamps. They reestablish the context the moment the record resumes. They limit the officer's ability to insert fiction into the gap. Now we move to the final moment of the encounter, when the officer decides whether to release you, cite you, or arrest you. This is the last point where your words can protect or destroy you. If they release you, your final line should be, "Officer, thank you. I appreciate the professionalism." This neutralizes their ability to claim you were argumentative or hostile at the end. It closes the record cleanly. If they cite you, say, "Officer, I will handle this through the legal process." Nothing else. Don't argue, don't react, don't explain. A citation is not a judgment. It is a piece of paper. If they arrest you, say only one sentence. "I am invoking my right to remain silent and my right to an attorney." Do not repeat it. Do not negotiate. Do not defend. Do not argue. After that, silence is absolute. This final invocation protects your case more than any other action in the encounter. Prosecutors cannot use silence against you. Officers cannot interrogate you without a lawyer present. And your calm, strategic behavior throughout the encounter will create a body cam record that puts you in the strongest possible legal position. Everything you've done, from controlling your physiology, to disrupting false narratives, to clarifying instructions, to narrating compliance, to stabilizing group dynamics, to invoking your rights, creates a record that is consistent, undeniable, and legally powerful. You are not fighting the officer. You are outperforming the officer in the creation of evidence. And when the system reviews the footage, the narrative they tried to build collapses under the weight of your calm, controlled, strategic conduct. This is how you protect yourself when police try to blame you for being aggressive. That brings us to the end of this story. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.